Good evening, everybody. We're going to get started. It's 7:10. We want to respect everybody's time. I want to begin by thanking everybody for coming out. My name is Guy Sampson. I'm the Chief of Staff to the Mayor. They'll all introduce themselves, but you can see he's a hardworking councilman because he's already down here working and getting this prepared for us. This is Councilman Cavante Duckett, the Vice President of our County Council, the Mayor of the City of Frederick, Michael O'Connor, and the Chief of Police, Jason Lando. And the police department will introduce themselves a little bit after Jason gives his presentation. I also want to acknowledge the fact that Alderman Kelly Russell is here, and we also have Yuselo Bravo from the County Executive's Office, who's also here. So what we're going to do is, the Mayor, Cavante, are going to give a few words, and the Chief of Police is going to give an update. At that time, the police will give an additional update, and then Denise will have a moderated portion of this. All of you all in front of you have a card. If you don't have one, if you have a question that you want to ask, but you don't want to raise your hand, please write it down, and Deja, Michaela over here, and Sam would pick it up from you, okay? So I'm going to turn it over to the Mayor. We're going to get started.
Well, good evening, everyone. Thanks so much. Is this working? Can you hear me? Do I have to stand closer to the...
Just lift it up some.
Hello?
There we go.
Is this working?
Yes.
Okay. I can't hear it from where I am.
Yes,
So,
it's good.
thank you so much for taking time out of your lives to be here, but I understand that the things that happen in the community are your lives, and that's why you are here, because this is important. Let me say at the outset that there is no acceptable level of crime in the city of Frederick. There's no acceptable level of bad behavior by people in the city of Frederick. It is not anything that we want. It's not anything that we tolerate. And we work every day to try and find ways to discourage it, to reduce it, to eliminate it. Having said that, when incidents occur in our community, we take them seriously. And this meeting is part of that effort to demonstrate that we don't want to be satisfied with some level of violence that occurs in our community. What happened a couple of weeks ago is tragic. A life was lost, and we feel for the family of the individual who died, and we feel for the family and friends and community that suffers along with them. And so the work that our police department does every day is intended to identify the people responsible for bad behavior, to isolate them, to remove them from the street, to look at the data, to deploy the resources that we have available in the city of Frederick, to make sure that we never take our safety for granted. My budget is going to be out on Friday. Just as a little preview, we are a fully staffed police department right now in terms of numbers. They're in various places in the department. Some are really close to the end of their time and might be retiring in a few months. Others are just starting and they're in the academy. Others had babies recently. They may be on light duty. But we have 150 authorized positions, and we have 150 police officers in the police department right now. We're lucky. But we're going to add more in our budget for fiscal year 24. So we're here to listen tonight. We want to hear what you have to say. I appreciate you being here, and I'm going to turn it over to Councilmember Duckett.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to Chief Lando and the Mayor's Office for the partnership in putting on tonight's community forum. This really does hit home for me. For those that don't know, grew up right here in the city of Frederick. The establishment that we sit in today is home. It is mine, and so knew both. Now the deceased, knew him and his family, and knew the victim of the shooting here on West All Saint Street. And so this is personal for me. And when I ran for office, I made sure that no matter what, that I would make sure that we are open and transparent in everything that we do. And while this incident may not be something that the county council has a direct hand in, it is one that I believe that I can continue to raise my voice to make sure that my community is heard. And so I'm grateful for the support of the mayor and of the city to make sure that they are using all of their resources to make sure that justice is served. And so to the family of Mr. Anderson, they have my deepest sympathy and prayers. I joined them on Friday night for a vigil that his friend Ryan put on. And so to see the hurt and to see the pain and to see the grief that that community is going through right now, it is evident that we do not want to see another life lost so early and so soon for no apparent reason. And so we're going to do everything that we can do to make sure that our voices are heard and to make sure that we don't have to, another family does not have to wait for that daunting call. So thank you all for being here, and I look forward to hearing the conversation from tonight. Chief Hando.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for having us here tonight. This was an amazing turnout. We don't see this, in a lot of communities, when you call a community meeting, not a lot of people show up around the country. So the fact that in Frederick, when we call a community meeting, we have a packed house, that says a lot about the community
Sure,
that we have
that
here.
no matter put on, and so to see the hurt and to see the pain and to see the grief
both of their
that
comments
community
about
is going
no
through
crime
right
is
now.
a tolerable amount of crime. We brought representatives tonight from the police department, and we want to put a face, we want to put a name to the faces over there. We want you to know who's out there protecting and serving. So I would like for each of our officers to stand up, just introduce yourself, your name, what unit or what department you represent, and then shortly after they introduce themselves, we'll get into a few updates. The one thing I just want to caution is these investigations are very sensitive. There are times that we have information that we can't release because we have to protect the integrity of the investigation. So I apologize if anyone feels frustrated tonight because we can't give a lot of information, but we're going to give whatever we can. Please know that these men and women are working very hard behind the scenes to bring both of these crimes, to bring prosecutions in both of these crimes. There's just some things that we can't talk about in a public forum, and I hope everyone understands that. So with that, how about Captain Hare starts us off with introductions, and I will. He has a very low voice, so you're going to need a mic.
Good evening. Thank you very much for having us. My name is Joe Hare. I'm a captain, 22-year veteran in the police department. I am one of your deputy chiefs, and one of my roles here tonight is I oversee investigations amongst some of my other responsibilities. So thanks for having us.
Hello, my name is Cody Campbell. I'm one of the liaisons for the African American community. I've been here for this department for roughly 2 years. Prior to this, I worked in Hagerstown, and I'll be hopefully seeing some of you at community events and things of that nature.
Good evening. My name is Justin Joseph. I'm a corporal, assistant supervisor for day shift patrol. So you'll probably see me out here in daytime around.
Hey, good evening, guys. My name is Corporal Sarah Lashir. I'm the assistant supervisor of the directed patrol team, which is just a fancy name for the downtown unit, and then I'm the supervisor of the crisis response team.
Hello, my name is Matt Corrado. I oversee our patrol division.
Good evening. My name is Jonathan Schultz. I'm one of the corporals in the major crimes unit.
All right, I'm Sergeant Reed Priest. I supervise our tactical investigations unit. We conduct offensive or proactive enforcement in a covert and overt capacity.
With that, we did print out 50. We probably have more than 50 people here, so we can start. You guys want to help me circulate these? These are some crime stats. Some stats comparing last year to this year. And one of the things I just want to note is that we see, you'll note that there's a significant increase in proactive patrols in this area, and you'll see the area on the map. There's a circle, but the area that we're in now. So because of some of the complaints we received from the community, and because of some of the crimes we've seen, you'll notice a significant increase in our proactive patrols versus the reactive patrols. Reactive would be us responding to calls. Proactive is us doing extra patrols, whether it's walking a beat or doing business checks, something like that. So we'll circulate those stats, and if anyone doesn't get one tonight, we can certainly email this out to the group later. And with that, Corporal Schultz, you want to come up here and offer whatever updates you might be able to?
Thank you. Again, I'm Corporal Schultz with Major Crimes Unit. I can give 2 updates on the investigation. The first is the homicide that took place at Exhale. We currently are not releasing any additional details that haven't already been released in that investigation. Second.
Could you speak up a little louder? You start off soft and then you get loud and go back.
You gotta hold it.
Yes, ma'am.
You gotta hold it real close to your mouth.
Yes, ma'am. And then the second update is on the shooting that took place right on West All Saints Street. That investigation also is continuing, and we are not releasing any additional details that haven't already been released to the media.
Reed, is there anything you can offer?
So, like I said, I work with the Tactical Investigations Unit. So, just a couple things we're throwing out there. A lot of great, we got a lot of great camera footage from a lot of these incidents. So, kudos to the residents downtown, especially on All Saints Street. We encourage, if there is any video, to share that with us. And maybe that's something we can encourage other residents to do as well. With increased camera presence and lighting and things like that will help out quite a bit. I'll assure you that my unit's going to be out. You may not see them in marked patrol cars, but we will be out quite a bit on Market Street and All Saints Street. And pending any further questions, that's all I have.
I think that's one important thing to note, and thanks for bringing that up, Reed. A lot of times, so Reed's unit, when he says it's a covert unit, they're not in uniform and they don't ride around in marked police vehicles. So there's a lot of times where they're actually in the neighborhoods and they're watching some of our bad guys, some people that we know are out there committing the crimes. They're doing surveillance in an attempt to build cases, and you're just not going to see them. And so I really wanted Reed to come here tonight and kind of explain that there is a lot going on behind the scenes, but unfortunately, until we are able to identify someone, get a warrant, or get someone in custody, for us to talk about that would jeopardize the case. And so with that, I know that people have questions and there's some cards at the table, so you gonna handle the questions? Okay.
So Denise Rollins is out here and she's going to moderate the conversation. So if you have any questions, please feel free to raise your hand and she'll work with that. But again, if you don't want to raise your hand, write on the card and one of our staff members will answer. And I also want to recognize that Alderman Shackelford just walking too.
Turn that one off.
See what you did there?
Yeah, just leave that one off. There was that one over there.
Good evening, everyone. I want to talk about the fact that a forum is a public discussion, a public meeting with open discussion. And do you know that discussion has 2 parts? Someone speaking, but also someone listening. So what we're going to try to do tonight is allow people to ask their questions, but also to listen to their perspectives so that we could learn and understand. What we'd like to do is raise, I guess we're going to raise our hands and we'll get the mic to you. And then if you have a card and you've filled out a question and you don't want to ask it, I will read it for you. We are really interested in hearing your perspective. This is phenomenal to see this room filled because it means we have an engaged community. So with that, who'd like to ask a question? And as you ask your question, I want to acknowledge the person who said, let's keep our voices up because we want to make sure that people can hear us.
I just have a really basic question. The police have said that you can't share any additional information to what's already out there with the media. Could someone summarize what has been released? What are the facts that you do know that have been shared?
Excellent question, and Corporal Schultz, he'll let you know what has been released so far. Thank you for that.
So the information that has already been released is basically the location of the incident, and I believe the names of the victims have also been released. Aside from that, we aren't going to be releasing anything additional until we have major milestones met in the investigation. So for instance, if we were to make an arrest, that would be released to the media.
Tell them the location, in case she hasn't heard.
The two locations, the first is Exhale, which is an establishment that's in the 400 block of North Market Street. And then the second location is right out here in the 100 block of West All Saints Street.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
One shooting and one stabbing, is that right?
That is correct.
So the gentleman said, was one a shooting and one is a stabbing, and the answer was yes. Who else has questions?
Back there in the corner.
And when you have a question, can you come up this way so that it'll be easier for people to hear you? Thank you, sir.
Hi, how you guys doing? In regards to the shooting, I'm more interested regarding that because it was about 400 feet from the house. I'm a new resident to anyone that's been down here, so for the people that have been here 10 plus years, even 5 plus years, I commend you. For the people that are under that, well, I have the same concerns that you do. With the shooting, what, I guess, other than additional policing, what other preventative measures are being taken in order to avoid this from happening again? What is the Moose doing to avoid a shooting happening in their parking lot? That's what I'm interested in. Alex, I'm sorry, pardon for the...
So I can speak on behalf of the organization, I think. So I am a member of Mountain City Lodge, number 382, in addition to serving in elected office. And so we have taken all of the necessary precautions to make sure that we updated our signage on our parking lot. We have, in working with the chief and his staff, they have come down here, they have given us all the tools that we need to make sure that we are doing everything that we can do. It is important to note that the incident did not transpire out of Mountain City Lodge. It was an outside event. It had nothing to do with this organization. And oftentimes, I think there's a misnomer that if something happens on West All Saints Street, or if people are on the parking lot, you know, unfortunately, it's hard for us to manage the parking lot. If you notice, there's a gate on the back of the lot, which we have decided to close off. You close it off, and we close off parking to our establishment, which raises red flags for our clientele. In addition to that, you have folks who walk up from Bench Street. You have folks who walk up from, what's it, Court Street down there, I think? Court Street, and they come up Saint Street. You meet in the middle, and then there's our big parking lot, and it's just a hangout spot. But it's not unnormal, because if you go further down the street, there's hangout spots everywhere in the city. And so we're doing everything that we can do on our end to make sure that traffic is alleviated over there. And so that's what we're doing on this end.
The one thing is we really do need the community's help. So if you see something, it's really important that we hear about it. And if it's an emergency, always call 911. If your safety is ever in danger, please call 911. But if it's something routine, like at a certain time every day, you see someone you don't recognize always hanging out, you see a suspicious vehicle, you know, it's our job to look into that. You know, we don't ask you to look into that, but we need that information. And so before we leave tonight, Sergeant Priest or one of our staff can get an email or a phone number to you. We understand sometimes people don't want their names to be released, and I get that. But even an anonymous tip is better than nothing at all. We really do need the community's help. If we get a tip that says, hey, this red car, you know, every day at 5 o'clock pulls up on a corner and something isn't right about it, even though we don't have your name, our detectives can maybe set up surveillance and watch and wait for that vehicle, and that could be someone that we're looking for. So really, this is a partnership, and we do need the community's help.
I will add that the city has made an investment in trying to figure out how we can better deploy technology to support public safety broadly. We're trying to do that in a very balanced way, because we don't want to create a police state. We don't want to create an environment where everywhere everyone goes, you're being followed by a camera. But our Board of Aldermen has approved a camera policy that was brought forward by staff in terms of using resources in the city's budget to deploy cameras both in permanent placements where we know we just want to keep a general eye in public spaces. So this is about public rights of way and parks and places where there's no reasonable expectation of privacy. But we're also looking at how we can use technology in more episodic opportunities when we think there's a reason for us to deploy those cameras because we've got good information or good intelligence that putting eyes on that space is going to help us to. I appreciate the question. I wish I could tell you there was a way that we could prevent bad behavior. The best thing that we can do to prevent bad behavior is make sure that people know that we're always watching. And so you're not going to get away with it. That's the best prevention that we can offer.
I want to also share that we believe that these two past incidents were targeted incidents, that they were simply targeted. So it's not random acts that are occurring to random citizens. So we believe that there's some relationship between the offender and the victim.
Do y'all have gun stores in Frederick? No.
Anyone?
I didn't want to jump.
Anyone want to take that question? Gun stores in the city of Frederick?
We do. We do.
Yep. The question was, are there gun stores in the city of Frederick?
And how old do you have to be as if you're, well, no teenagers, you know, to buy a gun?
21. Yeah.
So can you repeat her question?
Oh, the question was, how old do you have to be to buy a firearm, and the age is 21. Thank you.
Do you have to state why you want to buy the gun?
Could you ask questions on the mic, please?
I think we're going to go back and forth a few times with you guys.
Do you have to state, you know, why you want to buy a gun?
No.
Okay. So what about the men when they go hunting? You know, like.
Yeah, you don't have to, I mean, there's certain things that they'll check in your background to make sure you're allowed to purchase a gun, but you don't need to tell people what your intention is with the gun.
Okay, do y'all collect, you know, guns like other cities do, you know?
Like a buyback or a take-back program?
We haven't had one since I've been here. No, and I can tell you that in theory, gun buybacks are good. But what I've found, now we haven't had one since I've been here, but where I came from, we would do them like once a year when organizations would donate money and gift cards to give out. And we found that we weren't getting crime guns off the street. We were getting guns off the street that like grandma or grandpa had in a cabinet for many, many years, and it wasn't being used anyways, and someone found out they could get a gift card for it and they turned it in. So we weren't getting guns, it wasn't really making an impact. So there's pros and cons to that.
Yeah, I just have one more question. I think what the problem is that, and this is me saying it from me. The guns is not what kills the people. It's the bullets that kills the people. And you need to get a control on the bullets. Why not?
Yeah, there's certain things that are just, it's way beyond the local and state laws. I mean, there's certain federal laws we have to adhere to. So we don't have the right to take bullets.
I know the police is, well, the police should have bullets and guns and the army.
I wanted to offer a perspective on the idea that that this violence is not random in the way we understand that word, that it is targeted. But what I also understand, what I know, is that just because it is targeted doesn't mean that people who are innocent bystanders aren't going to get hurt by violence targeted from one person to another. And so what I tried to express earlier, which I'll try and express again, is what we want to create in Frederick is a culture of no tolerance for violent behavior. We want people to see this as an inhospitable community for them to settle their private disputes. And the way we do that is through the deployment of resources. That's an active and engaged police department that is visible and on the street, that's using data to drive how resources are allocated. It's that camera policy and how we use technology to create an environment where you're not going to be able to get away with bad behavior. And it's all of you as residents and citizens. And the department has already said it's been a lot of help on these investigations because people have cameras and they've shared that footage with the department. And I know that you don't think that that's something that you should have to do, to buy a camera and to make that investment in your own property in order to help us do what we need to do. But please understand that you're not helping just us. You're helping you, you're helping your neighbors, you're helping your community.
This is somewhat of a benign question, but it is budget season. Yep, sorry about that. But it's just, you've said several times that surveillance and cameras and things like that from the neighbors and residents are really helpful in terms of helping you address crime. Is there any consideration in the budget that you're looking at some sort of a rebate program for those sorts of cameras, as other cities have done, where people get like when we lived in DC, it was like $100 or $200 in order to install a camera on your house and register it with the police department as an incentive. So just an idea more so than a comment, but it is budget season. So.
Look at grant money.
I'll acknowledge it as a great idea. We are putting funding in the budget to support security cameras. I'm not sure that we've had a conversation about how we might apply those dollars in a rebate approach, but I think it's an innovative way to support residents helping us.
I was recently, just that, when you said that, it made me think of something. We were recently made aware of a number of grants through the COPS program. We actually are going to have a meeting next week to talk about which one of those grants we might want to apply for. No promises, but I'll definitely look and see if any of those grants would pertain to something like that, because it is. I mean, it's an incentive for the community. It helps you. It helps us kind of create that partnership. So we can make sure when we look at the grant options next week that we see if that would apply to one of them. There's like 5 or 6 grants out there right now with deadlines coming up soon. Thank you.
Just while we're on the topic of cameras, so we have a security video registration. It's on the Frederick City website. So if you just go onto that, just search security video registration, and you can actually register it so we know that there's a camera there, and we know there's a crime that takes place. We may be visiting you, and it could help solve something serious.
Thanks for bringing that up. And just so you know, if you register your camera, that doesn't automatically give us viewing privileges. It just lets us know that that address has a camera. We've had that question before. So.
In addition to these 2 incidents, there was also a shooting, exchange of fire on the 100 block of South Market in December. I believe it was in December. Did any changes happen after that that were a positive step in the right direction? Is there anything you can talk about? Was that shooting in any way related to these other incidents? It was December, right? Yeah, okay. Right, Chris Kringle Parade.
We have nothing that leads us to believe that that's connected to these other incidents that happened most recently, but that is one of the things that sparked our increase in both overt, which is the uniform patrols, and the covert patrols. And again, the mayor referred to us using data to drive our enforcement efforts. You know, every Tuesday we have a crime meeting. The mayor wants me to call it the anti-crime meeting, but we call it the crime meeting. And we look at our crime analysts talk about everything that happened in the past week, where are the crimes occurring. We put a map of the city up, we look at the dots on the map, and we adjust our deployment accordingly, so we make sure that we're going where the crime is. And so when we see something like that, even if no one's hit, we see an exchange of gunfire, something like that, for us, gunfire, that's a huge red flag, and we'll shift resources accordingly. Thank you.
So did we address what happened at the Kris Kringle Parade, whether that was?
Yeah, I can touch on this more.
No, thank you.
he actually took some people.
So that incident that you're talking about occurred on December 9th, I believe. By December 14th, we had both suspects in custody. And that was a joint investigation with Sergeant Priest's unit and also the Major Crimes unit. So we very quickly apprehended both suspects in that case.
Thanks, Schultz.
Yes, I'm looking at your statistics sheet here, and I live in this part of Frederick, the southern part of Frederick. The streets that I live on happen to be suffering from a deluge of car break-ins. We don't see a large presence of police in that area, but I can say pretty reliable to say that within the last month, there's been at least 20 break-ins, well, not break-ins, because it's carelessness on the part of people that live in there, not locking your doors. I mean, I have to admit, I suffered as a result of that myself one time. But I think the police presence would serve a purpose over there, because the gentleman that was stopped one time, my grandson stopped him, and he said the reason that he was breaking in the car was to check the time. Yeah, that's what he said. He said he was checking the time. I guess he was looking through the rear and trying to gaze at the clock on the dashboard. But that was the response he gave. But I think that would help that situation a whole lot. I think that there was an inadequate amount of lighting. You know, I have a dog. I got a new dog. I walk him several blocks, headed north and west. And the lighting in this area is atrocious. You can find several streets that say, and I know a couple years ago I mentioned to the city alderman, Donna Kazumchek, you know, and her name stands out. She asked me a question about it. But if you walk out to the behind Key Stadium, that place is total darkness. They need at least somebody to come out with a cigarette lighter. If the city doesn't have the money to put up a lighting system, but the lighting over in that area, in this area, is atrocious. And where I live, I happen to live in the area where there's two school systems: South Frederick Elementary School and the Boys and Girls Club, they have a school situation going on there still. But the traffic coming down through there, especially when South Street is blocked, and that happens several times a year, that you have to divert traffic from South Street and they have to come down Washington Street or through McMurray Street. But they speed down through there. I see a lot of the neighbors in Frederick telling people to slow down. This is not a drag strip. But I called Frederick to see if speed control bumps could be placed there. And they said that area didn't fit the need. I'm saying, you ride out through Thomas Johnson and you can't even go anywhere because of the speed bumps. You hit those little side streets. But they couldn't see fit to do a study to see if this area down here in the southern part of Frederick was worthy of speed bumps. That's all I have.
Thank you. The one I'm going to address one of those issues with the vehicle. We have seen an increase in Frederick and all around the region, a significant increase in car break-ins. Two things. Please tell your neighbors, be an advocate for your own safety and security. I think 60-some% of the vehicles that are entered are left unlocked. So that means people are just walking down the street, trying car doors, and as soon as they find one, they're gonna go in the car. The other thing is, if you are a victim of a crime, whether it's a car break-in or anything, please make a police report. When I talk about the crime meeting we have every Tuesday, where we talk about the crime stats, the crimes only appear on the map that get reported, and there's police reports made. So if there's 20 car break-ins on a street, and maybe 1 or 2 people call, to us it looks like 1 or 2 car break-ins. And then we come to a meeting and we find out 20 cars are broken into. So we have to report, we have to get a good police report on all the crimes in order to track them.
With regards to the street lighting, thank you. We have a street lighting replacement program, and we're in the process of trying to modernize our street lighting system, one, to reduce our costs. to get the old halogen, street lights off and replace them with LEDs. I will tell you there's pros and cons when we swap out that. Not everybody loves the bright white lights in their neighborhood. The police department loves it because it lights up the streets and it makes it easier for people to see and identify what they need to see and identify, and it creates a safer community. So it's absolutely worth us taking a look at sort of the phasing of our street lighting program and to make sure that as we're looking at how we deploy that across the city, that we're doing that in concert with the police department and their data using the CPTED principles, which is an acronym for crime prevention through environmental design. So we want to make sure that as we're looking at our street light replacement program, we should be doing that in a way that helps to mitigate neighborhood crime concerns because we're doing those street light replacements in ways that makes sense. With regards to the speeding issue, it's an issue all over the city of Frederick. The last time the city deployed speed bumps was 20 years ago. Because it's generally, speed bumps are not seen as the best method for actually reducing speeds in neighborhoods. But when we have complaints about speeding, we have created a program that involves the cooperation of the police department working with our traffic engineering department to identify whether or not how we best handle that speeding is an enforcement issue. Very often it is to a degree, and how much of addressing speeding in a neighborhood is an engineering issue, and what resources we need to bring to bear to think about that. So we've invested money in the last budget, and we're going to do it again in the upcoming one, to put more money into traffic calming, to give our police department and our engineering department the resources they need to look at how we can do more enforcement, but also perhaps re-engineer streets in ways that make sense to just get people to slow down. But I'll offer this as well. If there's speeding in the neighborhood, the people who are most likely to be speeding are the people who live in the neighborhood. It's not only true, but we need everyone. If you're behind the wheel of a car and you're driving too fast, you need to slow down.
Some of the written questions were already answered about cameras on poles and light posts, so we've got that one. We have a question that says,
Cameras?
Yeah, they talked.
Cameras.
They did. They mentioned it earlier.
That's the security camera program that we're working on where we deploy those.
But is that part of his issue, that would cameras fit in his issue?
His was the lights.
Oh,
Yeah.
speed cameras. Don't get me started.
No, not speed cameras.
Oh, okay.
Well, are you asking about speed cameras?
Well, I wondered if that was part of what
So
helped his situation.
I would love for the state to give me more authority to deploy speed cameras wherever I wanted to in my city. But state lawmakers don't want to give local government officials that authority. In fact, there was legislation, thankfully, that got killed that was going to restrict where we could place speed cameras relative to schools. Right now it's a half mile. There was a move to cut it down to 500 feet. So I would love to have more opportunity to deploy speed cameras as a way that we could discourage that behavior.
All right. One of the questions is, has the possibility of having businesses, all of them, closed prior to midnight ever been considered to prevent late night loitering / noise? Nothing good happens after midnight.
We can't. The only control that we would have at all is liquor serving establishments, and there's already laws in place. So we, as law enforcement or as the city, we can't tell businesses otherwise when to open and close.
Other questions from the audience? Okay, I'll be right over back here. I have these two first.
Thank you. I'm relatively new to Frederick, and I pretty quickly learned, speaking of businesses, that there were a few with a pretty substantiated reputation of being kind of central to a lot of criminal activity, disruptive activity, and just really an established pattern of creating a problematic environment. So when that's the case, what is the process for reviewing, suspending, and revoking their business license?
Thank you. About a year and a half ago in the police department, we reached out to some of our other partners and we started the Nighttime Economy Task Force. Traditionally, the establishments that we receive complaints about have been downtown, but it doesn't have to be downtown. It can be anywhere in the city. So we can get you some contact information. If there are tips, we will put that on the agenda for the monthly meeting of the Nighttime Economy Task Force. That's the police department, the fire department, the health department, the liquor board, all the partners that in any way touch a business in the city of Frederick. And then that'll be put on the agenda. We'll talk about the issues. Sometimes we'll do site visits. Sometimes it just depends on under whose purview it typically falls. And so sometimes the liquor board can go in and do an inspection. The fire department can make sure that they're not over capacity. But the Nighttime Economy Task Force would be your best route for those complaints, and I can get you the information afterwards. And even if you just shoot an email, we can get it on the monthly meeting, and it'll be discussed.
Thank you. I go to a lot of NAC meetings, and we have in my NAC repeatedly asked for those. They're not speed cameras, Mr. Mayor, they're speed monitoring. They flash how fast you're going. They kind of shame you into slowing down. And we could use more of those, I believe. We've asked, Hakeem said, it's budget time, so there may be another ask. And for the chief, that could be something you put in one of your grant applications. Those speed controlling, they just flash what speed you're going. They, like Batu said, they kind of like informally slow people down, Thank you.
I'm good.
Okay, I just wondered if you could expand on what you mean by targeted, right? So anyone that you point a gun at is your target. So is it domestic violence? Is it gang violence? Did the perpetrators live in our community? And could you just comment on the laws around recording? So all of our houses are right next to each other. Do we have to have the speakers turned off? What if it's picking up conversations from your neighbors, et cetera? What are the laws around that so that we just make sure that our cameras, we're not breaking any laws when we're using our cameras?
I don't know the law. Do you know the law?
No, I'll wing it. So great question about the audio recording. I think if you're out in public, I think it's free game. And if any of the detectives over there want to correct me, most cameras, like I know I have cameras in I live downtown as well. I have cameras in my house, and they're only video cameras. There's no audio at all. I don't know if any of our detectives or patrol folks want to weigh in on anything.
If you're in a lawful position to observe it or to hear it, then you're good to go. You can't be like putting a speaker or something into or listening device into somebody's house, but if you're in a lawful position, you're good to go.
And when we talk about targeted crime, it's typically a lot of violent crime. It's not unique to Frederick, but anywhere when we say targeted, it's that there's a known offender and a known victim, and so when we say
previous relationship,
there's a previous relationship. Oftentimes, and I'm not speaking about any specific case, but we'll see that they've previously engaged with each other. Sometimes it's retaliatory violence. So when we say targeted, it's someone goes to a location to commit a violent act on a specific person. The mayor's absolutely right. Innocent people can get hurt, but typically when we say targeted, it's they go there with someone in mind that they've engaged with in the past.
And I'll address the other piece of it because it's everyone is thinking it. Is it gang related? What is the gang activity that's happening? And I can't speak to that level, perhaps to the degree that the police department can. Where I can tell you where we're interested in that is things like graffiti activity. So, that's a community annoyance. But when there are episodes of graffiti in town, and we want residents to notify us that they've seen graffiti. We go out and we photograph all of it. The police department takes it and tracks it because they can use that information to help identify gang activity or other activity that's occurring in the community and then apply resources accordingly. So it may seem completely unrelated to crime in the community, but if there's an uptick in graffiti activity and you're just kind of saying, it's not my property so I don't care, we want to know about it because it may be an indication of something that we need to take a closer look at. And again, you are our eyes and ears on the street. I told you, we're authorized at 150 police officers in a city of about 80,000 people. They cannot be everywhere, all the time, all at once, everywhere, all at once, whatever that Academy Award-winning movie was. But so we need you. We need you to help us make sure that we put our officers where they need to be.
So, being from Frederick, there is no surprise that there has been a neighborhood beef that has gone on for far too long. I am 29. There are some who are in the room who have seen this uptown versus down in town and all this back and forth. And so we realize, and this is a plea to young people, folks who are in my age group, that we have to do a better job. The reality is that a number of us, we have ties to each other, we have family ties, we got friend connections, and we are really hurting ourselves. And that is just that's it in the nuts and bolts, right? And so when we, in this specific incident, when we say targeted, I am comfortable in saying that this is a neighborhood beef that has gone on for far too long that needs to end today.
All right, I appreciate Councilman Duckett saying that, and I want to move us back a little bit. We'll take all questions, but to the reason that we're here, which is to talk about the incident that happened. So one of the questions here says, why do the violent crimes on North Market Street seem to happen in the same block?
Great question. Yeah, I think when we talk about the NET, the Nighttime Economy Task Force, we track. We know that there are some establishments. I don't want to call anyone out without a complete and proper investigation. I don't want to call it any business owners, but we know we get complaints about certain places, and that's why we formed the task force. So this group could get together and do an intelligent look at some of these businesses and make a determination if there's actionable steps that we can take. I can tell you that some places have gone out of business. Some places have temporarily gone out of business. We have visited some places and let people know that the behavior there will not be tolerated. And so that's the whole reason we started this task force, is so we could stay on top of stuff like that. I can tell you that what happened most recently on North Market, it's something that we had been tracking. It is something we're actively working on. We don't have the authority, though, to unilaterally go to a business and say, we got a complaint about you, you're out of business, we're closing the door. We have to operate within the law, and so do we get frustrated sometimes as well? We wish we could move a little bit quicker on some of these complaints, absolutely, but it's something that we stay on top of.
This is an interesting question because very interesting. Yet reality is this could have happened at any establishment, any place, anywhere in this county. Bottom line, the reality is if the suspect and the victim and the individuals involved were somewhere else, I can almost guarantee you that this would have transpired. We cannot place blame only on this one establishment. And let's talk about the elephant in the room. Everybody's talking about Exhale. And the reality is we have to do a better job at communicating with our business owners. There's one thing to say that BYOB is going to solve the problem. But the reality is that's not the only answer. We have to do a better job because anywhere you go on Market Street, we can go to Old Town Tavern. There's incidents that happen there. But we oftentimes pick out the ones where minorities flock. So let's call a spade a spade.
I had a question over here first. I want to go there.
I'd just like to say, get back to the speed. when I'm out on the street, West South Street and South Front Street, I think it must be a speedway down there, and the cars are racing, and it's not just the people that live in the neighborhood, because when I'm out on the street, I don't notice that there's the people in my neighborhood or whatever. And it's just like, there are children out on South Street, and there may be a few on Bench Street, but I think something should be done, and I agree with this gentleman that said something about the blinking lights. I've seen them in other neighborhoods, but not downtown in our neighborhood, the Stowe neighborhood, or something like that. But it would be nice if we had something like that. And then plus on South Street, sometimes when I'm around there, the lights are dim or the lights go out, and they're out for some time, and you know, you can't see anything hardly. I've sat out there before when I lived on South Street and brought candles out from the house to sit on the porch so I could see. And it's dangerous for us being down in this community, no lights at all.
It seems like a small thing, but if there's a street light out, call the switchboard at DPW. If there's a traffic light that's not working properly, call the switchboard at DPW. Every one of those calls produces a work order. Someone will come out and address it. And if we have to come out repeatedly into a community, we'll come out repeatedly into a community. With regards to the speed, there's a place on the city's website, but there are people who are taking notes tonight, so we'll make a note of it. We deploy those speed boxes. We have some, and I agree, we probably could use 100 more. We deploy them based on the complaints that we get from the neighborhood. So when we get complaints in the neighborhood, we put those boxes, but there's a waiting list for people who want these boxes in their neighborhood. As I said earlier, speeding in this community it's a problem in every neighborhood in the city of Frederick. But we're going to continue to, put what resources we can towards it, because, it only takes one. It only takes one incident that goes wrong. And we don't want to wait. We really don't want to wait for bad things to happen to take action.
One of the questions here is, why don't you have police cars patrol State Street?
State Street.
I can tell you that I hear the police cars calling out on the radio on patrols on All Saints Street. So they definitely, you might not always see them. I can promise you that they're there. That is one of our areas that we focus on. If you look at the pieces of paper we hand out in the circle there, you can see that we drastically increased the amount of proactive patrols we're doing in the area. So you might not catch the patrol car driving by, but we are there. I drive down All Saints Street all the time, and I see our police cars there, so I promise you that they are there.
Other questions or comments about the incident that happened that brought us together? Gentleman in the back.
I just want to follow up on the question regarding patrol cars. Again, we want to, I guess, have a presence of police in the neighborhood, but I heard from previous administration that they had I guess patrol walking through the neighborhood, and I mean, when I first moved here, I seen it. I haven't seen as much recently. I mean, it's something that you can look into, so you can get more involvement. And it's also, I think, when you have patrolmen walk in the neighborhoods, it forms a relationship with the neighbor. They're not like this something you see on the TV. They're actually people that are humans. And I think you need at least, I think you don't have any kind of program that allows you to develop that rapport. And I think you would definitely feel like you have some sort of improvement in the relationship with our police department and our community.
Did you want to speak to community, please?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can certainly. I'll talk to Corporal Lashir afterwards. She introduced herself earlier. She oversees the directed patrol team, and they're always walking around downtown. So let's get with you afterwards, figure out exactly what blocks we need to look at, and if it's within the operational area, of the downtown patrol team, we can certainly do some walks around your neighborhood. Okay, we'll get with Corporal Lashir after.
Other questions or comments? Mr. Brown?
Could you comment on the welfare check, explain it a little bit so people know what you're talking about? When I was exalted over here under another police chief, I used to get them every week. And when I went to talk with them, they associated everything on the street with Mountain City Lodge. And we were getting a bad reputation for something that we weren't involved in. So I'd like you to explain what welfare check is and how far it goes.
Yeah. All that means is that we're called to check on the well-being of somebody. So that's all that is. It's not surveillance or anything like that. We're just going to make sure someone's okay. Is there anything else you want to add to that?
Typically, that's a call from a citizen that's generated. Someone's not feeling well. Someone may be experiencing like a drug overdose, or it could be a strictly medical call. So that's all welfare check is.
Yes, just checking on someone's well-being.
He seems to be talking about, though, developing relationships. So if the officer came in to talk to you, got to know you, did that make it better, Mr. Brown? It did. So are we doing that, where patrolmen might come in and get to know the people at the lodge or whatever?
My thing was, whenever they came down, several times they'd come a welfare check, and they always end up coming here. And we were getting a bad reputation for everything happened on All Saints Street. And just like they say, if something happened on West All Saints Street, the first thing people do is think about Mountain City. And we don't want to keep that, projecting that image. So somehow we have to get across that, you know, all the activities and all these things that happen in this end of town, Mountain City most of the time has nothing to do with them. So we don't like to, you know, we don't like to be involved in the press and this type of thing. It makes it seem like we doing something that we shouldn't be. And in the long run, if something would happen and new people come in, they'll see all this visits to Mountain City, and it's pretty easy to give us a bad reputation.
So, a question. About 3 years ago, we had a shooting at a funeral that I had at Jackson Chapel. 2 people were shot while the funeral was going on. The police came, they got everything under control. I commend them for getting there that quick as they did, because we had a couple hundred people at the funeral, and 2 guys, well, 1 guy shot 2 guys, and he was able to get away. But what is the ones who come in from out of town? These guys weren't from Frederick who did the shooting. I think it happened from somebody went somewhere else, did something, and it was retaliated. They came up here in Frederick and they shot these 2 guys. I have the gentleman who was killed 2 weeks ago, Anderson. His funeral hasn't been scheduled. We're not actively trying to schedule it yet until we can kind of see what's going to go on with that, because we don't want them coming to our place and starting it all over again. So I know when we do have it, we're going to have the police presence there.
Please, even if you just have to email me directly, let us know when it gets scheduled, and we'll make sure that there's a visible presence there, for sure. Especially when we have a victim of a violent crime and we have any thoughts of potential retaliation, we'll make sure we have adequate patrol, both overt and covert, so we can have Reed's guys out there, okay? Thank you.
Yeah, just bear with me. It's going to be a few-part question. So I'm looking at your numbers here.
First, I would just like to be explained what exactly it is the patrol check consists of and why it increased so much from the end of last year to the first 3 months of this year. Second, when we're looking at this map here, this is no offense to anybody that lives in this area here, but this is such a very narrow view of Frederick. What is it that you're doing outside of this area for people that don't live here? I would like to know so I could be safe also. As far as the incident goes, I noticed you made a remark earlier, I believe it was the mayor, that you do not want to wait until tragedy strikes for action to be taken. But I also noticed a remark that it seems as though after the incident occurred on North Market Street, that's when the task force was created. Now, I don't also want to keep focusing on the narrow scope of North Market, but we do know crime happens up and down Market Street and North Market. Why isn't this something that was thought of before? And now that it is in play, what is it that you're going to do to make Market safer for people that do still want to hang out, safely?
I probably should answer them one at a time, because now I've got to remember what the first question was. But as far as the Nighttime Economy Task Force, that's been in operation for a little over a year and a half, so that wasn't something that was just formed in response. As far as the map goes, we just printed this map because we wanted to provide stats for the area immediately surrounding here tonight. We can certainly do the same map for whatever your neighborhood is. I can get in touch with you and we can do it. Our crime analyst can pull the stats. Well, we just pulled stats for tonight because we were meeting here and we wanted to talk about what was going on around here. And then what was the
patrol checks?
Oh, patrol checks. All that is we receive complaints or requests to do additional patrols in an area. And so our officers do that. They call out on the police radio. They say, we're going out on a patrol check in this neighborhood. They drive around for a little while. Sometimes they put their cruise lights on, the red and blue, like when the lights just stay on, and they'll drive around and just be a visible presence there. We know studies have shown that just being a visible presence for a few minutes in an area a couple times a day, or sometimes in the police world they call it applying treatment to an area, is a visible deterrent to criminal activity. So that's all a patrol check is. That's actually, it's either a request from the community or it's us looking at the crime stats and saying we need to do some more patrol checks in this area based on crime that's occurring.
It's me.
I think Joe wanted to chime in.
Okay. Sure.
I was actually the one that had the crime analyst pull the data, so I just pulled it for the data set just around here. But in reference to your question about crime, you can actually go online on our website. We're very transparent with not only our annual report, crime reports, our internal affairs. Actually, you can see crime for any neighborhood. We partner with LexisNexis, a software company, that you can see anywhere in the city of Frederick what's going on at any time. So if you need any help with that, just contact me. Just get with me afterwards, and I'll give you the link.
Okay. I don't want to keep beating a dead horse to death, but you were saying about the traffic that comes through a neighborhood. It's the people that live in the neighborhood. That's not true. I live on Carrollton Drive, and I have school buses coming there, people coming from Center on down Carrollton Drive, and they're speeding. So I'm gonna go to my next NAC meeting and find out how we can get that speeding stopped on Carrollton Drive, but it's an absolute mess. We fear for the kids going out in the street because they're about to get hit. Even adults can get hit over there on Carrollton Drive because it's a lot of speeding over there. And if the police wanna come through there, I'll be glad to have them over there.
Everyone,
Denise.
Diane is giving us the symbol to close down.
So I've gotten the message, and I think I want to revise and extend my prior remarks about speeding in neighborhoods. Okay, I wasn't saying that the only reason they're speeding in neighborhoods is because you're the ones doing it in your neighborhood. That was not what I was trying to say. But let's be honest. If we're ever driving over the speed limit wherever we're going, we're contributing to that problem. if it's not our own neighborhood, in someone's neighborhood. And so the only point that I wanted to make is we owe it to ourselves to do what we can do. But you're absolutely right. The problem is not created by the neighborhood. It's created by all of us. I get it. My intention was not to blame the neighborhood for the problem. You are not the reason for the problem. But we can all be part of a solution somewhere.
I just wanted to add on as it relates to speeding and traffic issues, because that seemed to be a significant number of the questions tonight. The mayor gave a little sneak preview when he opened up about some of his budget priorities and that we'll be adding officers to the department. One of our goals for the future, as Frederick grows, right, more roads, more traffic, more people moving here, in the police department, one of our goals is to take some of those new folks that we're going to be getting and develop a traffic unit. Because right now we have officers that are out answering 911 calls, serving the community as best they can, and they go out and they do traffic enforcement as time and calls permit. One of our goals, I think we're now at the point with our population and our traffic where we need to look at having some officers that are dedicated to going out full-time doing traffic enforcement, because that is so many of our complaints. So please know that is on the horizon for the police department. That requires us to hire and train and get those positions filled, but that is one of our priorities for next year.
All right, Diane has asked us to wrap it up, but I want to acknowledge we have 2 questions that weren't answered. What are the current rules, laws for carrying concealed weapons, and could that be strengthened in the city?
That would be best directed to probably either Reed or one of those guys over there.
I don't know the concealed carry. So I'll say, so as far as strengthening it, I will tell you guys, a lot of these incidents with violent crime that we're experiencing, most of these people can't carry a firearm because they're prohibited anyways. Just to tell you a little about what we did last year, is we initiated somewhere in the realm, I think, of 78 either short or long-term investigations. We received well over 100 tips from my unit, and we took 22 guns off the street. A lot of them were also narcotics dealers. However, out of those 22 guns, 0 of them were possessed legally. So I don't know if it's going to be an issue of someone legally possessing a weapon. That's kind of my point on that.
Thanks, Reed. Yep.
And then what can be done in terms of substance use in downtown, as this seems to be playing a role in violence? I frequently see people drinking on the street all day, often worse, with no apparent enforcement. It is disruptive at best and dangerous at worst. It seems that people congregate in certain areas downtown with no repercussions.
Corporal Ashir and the downtown team, I can tell you that they are out and about downtown all the time. As the mayor said earlier, we can't be everywhere at once. There's times where the team will be answering a call at the north end of Market, and then something's going on at the south end. So if you see something, please just call in. A lot of times people see something, and then afterwards I'll get a phone call that said, I saw this yesterday and nothing was done. And I said, did you call 911? And they said, no, I just wanted to tell you about it. So please, just call. As the 911 calls come in, the dispatchers, they're ranked in order of priority, and we get there as quickly as we possibly can.
Can I? Oh. And I think when it comes to sort of the substance use, and I'll tie into that sort of the mental health, is that it requires a response that isn't necessarily law enforcement. And what we're working on now in the city of Frederick is how we can better build the coalition between our law enforcement personnel, our mental health providers, and our Department of Fire and Rescue Services, those first responders that are more in the direct health care delivery. Not everyone who doesn't have a place to go is in the wrong place. Just because someone is on the street doesn't mean that they can't be there. So what we have to be focused on when we look at both a law enforcement perspective, but in a human services outreach perspective, is what are we legally able to do to help this person, and what does that person want from us when we offer it? There are certain offenses that it's easy for us to see, well, why would someone be allowed to do that? insert the blank, perhaps it's, I think they're consuming alcohol in public. Some of it is about the way police have their powers and can use them. Some of it is about what the court will do once that infraction comes before them. Most of the offenses that you might see at that street level are not the kinds of things that would result in a police officer removing that person from that situation and taking them into custody. They're non-custodial kinds of offenses. So we're going to write them a municipal citation or some other thing. We're going to hand it to them, and they're going to have to show up in court. And for a lot of these offenses, when they get to court, the judges aren't going to, they don't have money to be fined, and they're not going to be thrown in jail because that's not going to help their situation. That's not what we want either. So we're trying to figure out how we create the more coordinated response that involves human services outreach, mental health professionals, substance use professionals, police when necessary to ensure the safety of everyone who's involved in that situation. But that's a complicated challenge for us to deal with as a community. But we're continuing to apply resources to that as well. And I'll let.
Hey, good evening, guys. Like I said, my name is Corporal Sarah Lashier. One of the things that I do, I'm the assistant supervisor of the downtown unit. So one of the things we like to do with Frederick Police Department, as well as the city as a whole, is we like to lead with collaboration. And like the mayor was saying, we want to get to the root of the problem, because a lot of the homeless population, they can't pay back those fines. But what's the root of their problem, right? The substance abuse, the mental health. So what are we doing to work with them to mitigate that problem? Is we have a program that's called LEAD. It's Law Enforcement Assisted Diversion. So instead, like if somebody is dealing with substance abuse problems, and because of that, they're committing petty thefts. So instead of charging them, what we're doing is we're working with the health department, and we're getting them resources. And I mean like any type of resources. Like, okay, well, what do you need? I need a hotel for tonight. Okay, let's work on that. What else? A driver's license. Okay, cool. Step 1, let's get a driver's license. Step 2, let's start looking for a job. So we work them through that program, okay? Like I said, we want to try to find the root of the problem instead of always putting them within the system, okay? As far as mental health, the crisis response team is something that I'm in charge of, and it speaks directly to the mental health problem that we are having right now. It's a car that's staffed Monday through Friday, 1 to 9. It has a police officer, it has a paramedic, and it has a staff member from Shepherd Pratt. And that is what my officers deal with every day. We meet anybody in the city of Frederick, anybody who's experiencing a crisis, we meet with them, we offer them resources, we figure out a treatment for them. And again, getting to the root of that problem, guys. Any questions with that?
Is it true come July that they're gonna legalize marijuana?
Well, any question about the LEAD program and crisis response team while I'm here? No? Okay, cool. Thank you.
She's like, no. Yes. The short answer is yes. We don't know what it looks like yet, but yes. She's like, I'm here for one reason. Not my MOS.
Come July, they said that they're gonna legalize marijuana.
Okay. So what we're doing is we're not going back to folks who already spoke, only because we have a limited amount of time, so I apologize. We will, as we close this, ask the gentleman who's sitting in front of us, what can we do as citizens, and what can you do as people who serve citizens to make sure something like what happened 2 weeks ago doesn't happen again, so that a mother doesn't have to bury her son, and 2 children don't have their father taken from the rest of their lives. So I would ask you to end with, what can we do?
That's a very difficult question, right? But for me, it's all about showing up and being a presence. I have the privilege of being the first African American elected to the county government, right? And it's not something that I take lightly. But just being in the position that I am in now, I have the opportunity to bring folks along, bring them, to expose them to things that they traditionally would not have been able to see. And so I'm going to use my leverage to make sure that folks in my community can walk right beside me as I journey on these next 4 years in elected office. Now, what I need from you all is there are, we talk about the city police, but I'm a county elected official, and so we have a sheriff's office which covers the county division of fire and rescue and all these other divisions, and we as well are in our budget season. The county executive will be releasing her budget on April the 15th, April the 14th, somewhere around that bandwidth. But I encourage you all to reach out to the county council, look at the budget. There are things there that you think that we can move money around or spend it another way to alleviate some of the problems that happen in this county. Please, please, please reach out. Come to our public forums. And if there's anything that is going on in your neighborhoods, do not hesitate. And like I said, while I may not, I represent a little sliver of the city of Frederick. But anything that happens in this county falls under our purview. And so if it's a simple collaboration with the mayor, with the chief of police, with our state elected officials, we'll do whatever we can do to make sure that everybody's voices are heard.
Thank you. I think it comes down to this is a partnership. I mean, we want to be good. We want to take care of our community, but we want to have a partnership with you. And so I would just ask, if there's anything I could ask, it's to be our eyes and ears, because we can't be everywhere all at once. As far as that partnership goes, a gentleman earlier talked about not wanting this particular location to be associated with crime in the area. We would love to have a partnership with you. We'd love to come here. We have Cody's here tonight. I'm Officer Campbell with our Multicultural Liaison Unit. We have liaisons assigned to 5 different communities around Frederick. And so Cody is the liaison to our African American community. If you want us to be present here and you want us to get to know you and you want to get to know us, all you have to do is ask. Little notice would be good too, because we're really busy. But we will make sure, we will get it on our calendar, we will get someone here, and we'll get to know each other better, so we don't have that sense that like this is a place where crime occurs. If you want to be good community partners, let's work together.
They've touched upon it. I think you're doing it because you're here tonight. We put this out and you showed up. So you care. And it's important. And your neighbors, some of them probably wanted to be here, couldn't be here for a variety of reasons. Share with them what you heard tonight. Encourage them the next time there's not a community meeting about this, because I don't want to have another community meeting about this, but a community meeting about anything. Encourage your neighbors to show up and be active and involved and engaged in their community. Know who your neighbors are. If you haven't introduced yourself to your neighbors, knock on their door and meet them. Find out who lives in your neighborhood. That's the strongest web that we can weave. So that's what you can do. You're doing it, and you just need to, spread the good news. What can we do? We made a commitment when I became mayor in terms of my approach to what I wanted Frederick to be and how I believe this community could function as a place that everyone, regardless of what neighborhood they live in, regardless of what background they come from, regardless of what gifts they were given or what gifts they've gained, Frederick needs to be a community of opportunity. It has to be a community of opportunity for everyone that calls this place home. And I will not give up on that vision of Frederick as a community for everyone. And so everything I do every day is about trying to make this place a better place today than it was yesterday and make it a better place tomorrow than it is today. That's my commitment to you. That's all I can do, that I'm going to keep trying every day.
Thank you all for coming out tonight. We also want to thank the Mountain State Lodge number 382 for hosting us today. As you can see, they have renovated their building, and it looks very nice, and the downstairs is getting finished. And if you do not know, they were awarded by the Maryland, well, not award, I'm sorry, it's in the supplemental budget, $500,000 to continue the work here in this building, which is huge. And they almost there, $1 million worth of money from the state to refurbish this building and a historical landmark in our community. So thank you so much for hosting us. Their staff who are still going to be here, the mayor, the chief, Cavante's still here, I'm sorry, Councilman Duckett's still here, vice president. We also have Alderman Shackelford and Alderman Russell who is here, if you all want to talk to them, and also the other officers who are still here. So thank you all so much.
Good job.